too much us against them from them. You know, like as if if you don't have brown skin, you have nothing of value. That's what I was kind of feeling was their point of view, and I don't agree with that at all. But you know, they say you change one thing, you change everything.
Okay, everything is up and running.
All right.
I think you can see what's on the monitor.
I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you. I'm just trying to rewind this. Okay, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say, once I get in there and it's quiet for a minute, whenever you're ready to roll, you can start. Whatever, it's open up on the two-shot or I can go for the single shot.
It don't matter. Whatever you do, you do. I kind of want to do it like in 10-minute segments.
Okay, I can give you the time cue right there.
Yeah.
So I'll take the time cue from when you start. And I'll give you a cue. I'll give you like 1 minute. You know, I'll give you closer than 1 minute, 1 minute.
If you can put your hand up for 2 minutes, that'll be good. And then
2 minutes, 1 minute.
yeah.
I'll count you down.
So you do like the 2, 1, and you calm me down, we'll get lower. And then you'll give me sort of the 5, 4 to start in.
No, it's already rolling right now. I'm the second one I can do it that way.
Okay, cool.
It's already rolling right now. Basically, once I'm out of here, it's quiet. Quiet before they start rolling.
All right, cool. I do not want to give them. Let's see how this sounds out here. I want to give all these products. What do you got? I want to give them endorsements. You know. So we're rolling now. So I'm just gonna play this a little bit to get started. So we are here with the old heads. Look at the wrong camera. The old heads. Back again. I don't know which way to look, but I'll just start talking. There we go. The old heads back again. It's been a little bit of a while for a little bit of break. We started doing this back in, must have been December 16. And we're back again to give it a shot again at greatness. I'm King Bear Sadat. I'm here with my guest, Theodore Kirkland. Theodore Kirkland, author of Spirit and Soul, An Odyssey of Black Man in America, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Theodore Kirkland is my cousin, but also has a lot of accomplishments. One of the first black people in the police academy, Korean War veteran, activist, has been got presidential accommodations. The man is a great gentleman, a great mentor, and welcome, Theodore.
Well, thanks, cuz. I didn't know you had that much information on me.
Oh, man, I had a lot more. I just didn't want to say too much, you know. But I really appreciate you being here with us. I wanted to get started just about a few different things and just sort of talking about really the state of. Oh, is it really? Okay. Am I scratching it or? Okay.
Got all kind of little tricks in your bags, huh?
It's funny because he was talking about Winona, and he was talking about how when they used to travel all together, she would always have something for him in his pocket. He called it a bag of tricks. I laughed.
You remember Felix the Cat?
Huh?
You remember Felix the Cat, the cartoon?
Felix the Cat. Yeah.
The song, Felix
Yeah.
the Cat.
I haven't heard
Felix
that in a
the
long
cat, the
time.
wonderful, wonderful cat. Whenever he gets in a fix, he reaches into his bag of tricks.
Tricks, yeah.
I think he was.
Yeah, that's where you got it, okay.
Somebody's bag.
It's your hero.
You never
It's
know
your
what you
hero,
might need.
yeah.
Pull out.
Well, my wife would always carry, stuff that you might need, some aspirins or candy or.
And don't even worry about which camera you're looking at. You'll see it on the screen. Just casually go to the one you want to.
Right.
You don't always want to be looking at the camera.
Indeed.
So once again, when it's quiet now out the room, go ahead and do what you're gonna do.
So just start. You say immediately it's rolling and stuff.
Just as soon as it's quiet for a minute, count 5, 4, 3.
All right, cool.
Yes, sir.
again. Welcome to the old heads. We're back again. It's been a little bit of a while. We had a little bit of a break, but we are back. We started doing this in December of 2016, and I'm King Bear Sadat. I'm here with Theodore Kirkland. Theodore Kirkland, author of, I'm going to get the name right, sorry about that. Spirit and Soul, forgive me. The Odyssey of a Black Man in America, Volume 1 and 2. Theodore is also my cousin and a very strong brother in the community, has done a lot of things, has quite a lot of accomplishments. Ex-Buffalo police officer, done a lot of things. Was a military man. He's done a lot in the community. Has been gotten a lot of awards and accommodations from all kind of groups, including the president, many, many more. I mean, YMCA, SLIC, NAACP, ACLU, just a very accomplished brother and someone who I'm glad to call not just a relative, but also a mentor. And thank you for being with us, Theodore.
My pleasure.
So I wanted to get started just talking about a few different things. One, it's Malcolm X's birthday today. I'm not sure how old Malcolm X would have been, but you know, I've always looked at Malcolm X as when in the movie Ossie Davis was doing speaking in Spike Lee's movie, he called him my shining prince, and I've always looked at Malcolm X as that. And you know, having been a child, I think Malcolm X was killed before I was born, I believe. I'm not really sure, but I'm just wondering.
1963.
63, okay, yeah. So I was 5 years before I was born. So I just wonder, you know, when you in a day and age where we don't really have leaders, and as a gentleman who lived through times when a brother like Malcolm and MLK and folks like that were around, just want to ask you about the legacy of Malcolm X and things you remember, and just get your position on what you think of when you think of Malcolm X today on his birthday.
Well, what I think about is that I was sitting on the board, and I can expound on that a little bit, when his killers came up for parole. Anyone who's read my second book will see that much of that was used to get me off the parole board. So they were serving 20 years to life. But if we go back to the time that Malcolm was present within our communities, Malcolm was the first black of recent times, I guess, you know, that that grabbed the attention of black people. He was needed at that time. King was out there.
Right.
And Malcolm was giving white America like a choice. You either go along with Dr. King and his nonviolent, or you have to deal with us. See, that's like a union. That's like a group of men on strike. They say to the union man, you either come along with us and give us these amenities, or, you know, what we need, or we go and hurt your business by not going. So I saw it as a teamwork, even though it was never acknowledged that they had sat down and planned this thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it was great, and so therefore, you know, Dr. King was able to do certain things that normally he probably would not have done, because you didn't put the or down. You or this, you know, the choice is yours to make.
So it was sort of opposite sides of the same coin.
It was opposite sides of the same with the same objective. Let's put it that way.
Right. I remember having to write a paper when I was a young man, and I was asked to talk about the differences between, or the similarities. And I remember being very young and really feeling like they had nothing to do, and they were not at all similar. But now that I've gotten a lot older, I realize that there are, you know, many different ways to accomplish a goal, or to get to a goal. Mm-hmm. You know, and we start talking about leadership. You know, one of the conversations we had, you know, right now we talk about black leadership in America. You know, whether we're talking about Obama or we're talking about Mayor Brown. You and I were having a conversation about, you know, these are black leaders that were not selected by black folks. And I'd like you to expand upon a little bit more about how these people were told, here are your black leaders, and how that all came to be, and just your position on some of this. I mean, I know you talk about this stuff in your book. I just wanted to have you talk about it a little bit here, if you didn't
Well,
mind.
let me just, let's go back to Dr. King.
Please.
And very few people probably understand how he got involved in the civil rights. He was chosen by the people. He was chosen by a group of people in the churches, and they got together and they picked him. And according to the NAACP leader at that time, and I think his name escapes me at this point. I think the older I get, the less I can remember all these names. He said, the reason they had selected King was because he was new in town. He was the new church pastor of this church. And the figures and the fathers uptown in City Hall had not had a chance to put their hands on him yet.
Okay.
Now you have to understand, that means the politicians up here have not gotten their hands on him where they can control him yet. And so that's why they chose him, to be a leader. This is after Rosa Parks had made her stand on the bus.
Right.
Matter of fact, if you ask the average black, what did Rosa do? They said, well, she refused to give that white man the seat. That's not true. That's not true. That's a simple thing. But what she did was what Rosa Parks did was she went against the law. Okay?
Right.
Because the law said you're supposed to give him the seat.
Okay.
So it's bigger than just saying one person. You're talking about a law.
Nice.
And that was the difference. I like explaining that to people, because they make it sound like a small thing if it's just one man. But no, it was the law. And that's why they were able to get the police to come on and make the arrest, so forth and so on. So Malcolm was constantly on that side with the threat that they would do harm unless they meet the demands of Dr. King.
Right.
And this is the way this whole scenario operated.
Yeah, I didn't mean to get away from it. Was it the Southern Christian Leadership Conference?
The Southern Christian Leadership Conference, yeah, that was part of it. But it was a lot of other organizations involved too at that time. They all sort of fell together and allowed King, because remember now, the big push, the big acknowledgement of King came at the March on Washington.
Right.
Now, how many people know what the march was about? And I've done this with a lot of people. It's a march on Washington. The March on Washington was to put pressure on Congress to pass a civil rights bill. That's what that was about.
Right.
And so the march was successful. Kennedy is killed. What's his face? Johnson takes over as president. He gets the bill passed. And he makes the statement, which becomes very interesting, that he just destroyed the Democratic Party. Oh no, the Republican Party, Democratic Party, because they had gotten involved in the civil rights movement. And if you remember correctly, a lot of the Democrats on that side went over and became Republicans.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So we get the civil rights bill. Then the movement finds out, and I just use that phrase movement, but King and others, that it's not sufficient. Still doesn't deal with the issue of voting. So that's when the Pettus Bridge and everything came in, where they were going across the bridge and so forth and so on. That was the next march. And so they get that passed, 1960. That becomes the 1967 Civil Rights Bill.
Okay.
And that's where we are today. We now everybody, but in the North, in certain cities, you could vote. I was voting ever since I was 20 years old. Whatever that time was. But it mostly applied to the South.
Right. A lot of times I think, and I'm glad you brought us back to this, because two things. One, I had gone to D.C. recently, and I was at the Lincoln Memorial, and I didn't know at the top of the steps, right on the spot where MLK spoke, they have an etching in the marble that makes mention of this is the spot in which MLK gave the speech. I didn't realize that was part of something the national parks have done, but. I often think about what it was like growing up in the Jim Crow South. I mean, you haven't grown up in South Carolina, and your mother and my grandmother and everybody grew up there. I can't imagine what it was like to I mean, I deal with racism as